The kind of community that I want to live in is or would be inclusive and non-judgmental, I think, and compassionate as well.
One that's fair, equitable, safe for people.
One that welcomes and includes all community members without judgment or shame.
One that doesn't put people down for their differences, but rather celebrates the differences, and one that's based on mutual trust and respect and a foundation of equality.
I would like to live in a community where politicians and policymakers have the courage to look at difficult issues, because I recognise that substances and drugs is a complex issue, but to look at issues such as that in a new way, in a way that's informed by facts and reality, and in a way that's open-minded. I have experienced how the current policies impact on myself and many others that I know.
The biggest impact of our current drug policy on our community and my community is the stigma and shame that still surrounds people who use drugs.
They result in material harms to those who do use substances in the form of criminal records and the subsequent impacts that has on employment and on family situations.
It's very much modelled on the American war on drugs, except in my experience, it's really not the war on drugs. It's very much the war on drug users. The current system, the current policy is not working, has not been working. It marginalises people who are often already marginalised.
It starts off with a policy and then it ends on the grassroots levels as discrimination and intolerance towards a large walk of people.
A lot of people don't understand the complexity around addiction and think that it should be punitive always. When you focus just on these behaviours are bad, you forget that there is a human connected to those behaviours.
What kind of community do I want to live in? But also, what am I prepared to walk past? And seeing people being searched by the cops, people who are already on the margins, seeing them every day being searched by the police, for me, it really made clear that that wasn't something that I was prepared to walk past. It wasn't something that I wanted to accept. It wasn't something that I wanted to be a part of the community that I live in.
A sensible place to start would be to have a more honest and open conversation about drug policy that's informed by robust evidence and takes into consideration the perspectives of all community members. But that just can't happen while our current drug laws are as they are, because they force drug use into secrecy and create a culture of fear.
But if we can begin by decriminalizing drug use, it will mean that then all the stigma that surrounds drug use and addiction will begin to dissipate, and that also people who use drugs can participate more honestly and openly in society, including through sharing more honest stories about experiences with drugs.
Closing the divide that exists in people's minds between us and them, i.e. those who don't use substances or who only use the more socially accepted substances, particularly alcohol and to a lesser extent tobacco. So if people had a better understanding of how these things develop into problems, I feel like they might have a better understanding of the humanity of the people who have those problems.
By having conversations like this and changing how we view or think about people who use drugs, and I think getting that message across to everyone, friends, family, our communities, just started to change. Yeah, that stereotype view of what a person who uses drugs looks like and what type of person they are.
There are no simple solutions, and this false dichotomy of, drugs are bad and no drugs is good is unrealistic, and it's inaccurate. Not everyone's experience of drug use is like mine, which was addiction and detrimental to me. And there are examples in the world, such as Portugal, where a radically different system has been adopted and has proved enormously and surprisingly successful. So an open, a curiosity about other ways of doing things as well.
To see different language being used around drug users, instead of calling people junkies or referring to someone as clean and unclean, people rather just saying someone who uses drugs.
Away from a a criminally oriented system to a more health oriented system, and more acceptance of the fact that substance use isn't always a problem anyway.
We do have some people in politics as well who are more supportive of, say, harm reduction strategies like pill testing and that. So I think there is potential to change, and that we're moving slowly, but we're getting there.
There's a growing number of politicians and prominent community figures that are willing to speak up and seek change. And more community action and social justice groups, such as Unharm, are lending their voice to a fairer and more rational discussion of drug laws and drug policy.
I think it will take courage. I think it will take individuals who are open-minded enough and brave enough to perhaps start speaking things that aren't publicly popular, but reflect reality. So, yes, but I'm always an optimist, always an optimist.
The question now isn't whether it's going to happen. It is. It's to make sure that it happens on the right terms, so that it is actually achieving a fairer society rather than just reinforcing the status quo.